welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Reactor Corps, Episode 4. It's a special podcast that we do here at the Whatnauts, where we can talk about the latest movie releases or newest Netflix shows or whatever else we find that we cannot miss and that we just have to hang out and talk about. This time, though, it's going to be on The Incredibles 2, which I am super excited about. My name is Kyle Springer, and along for the ride, I have the one and only Eric Mannix.
What's up, y'all?
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. And you can't hear her, but my 4-year-old daughter Emma is sitting next to me, just banging on it. So you might hear random kicks of my coffee table and stuff. So if you hear random thuds or whatever, that's my kid shuffling around.
She's having fun.
She's having a good time. She's just real shy. But Emma, you love The Incredibles, yeah? Did you have a favorite part? No, she's not talking. She knows it's a mic. She knows
that
what's
was
up.
my favorite part too.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, sweet. So we both saw this yesterday. We are recording this on the Monday after opening weekend, which was also Father's Day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what you went to go see this? I'm assuming with your whole family.
We did, yeah.
What was that like?
First, I want to back up. I didn't realize that it had been 14 years since the first one came out until this weekend. Because me and my wife, when we very first started dating, saw the first one in the theater.
Wow.
I feel like at the time, there was a lot of animated movies. A lot. I couldn't keep them all straight back then. And, we had just been dating for a few months, and I remember we were just really bored one day. We decided we were going to go on a date, we were going to go to the movies, and now, I know Pixar is the thing. Back then, I mean, it was I don't know, there were so many companies doing it that, The Incredibles, at least to my mind, didn't stand out at first. But it looked like the best option as far as what was out. And, of course, we saw it and loved it and thought it was amazing. I'm super into it. It's definitely one of my favorite Pixar movies for sure. But it was one of those, we had low expectations going in just because I feel like there was a glut of CG animated films at that time. And, it was a trip, though, because, again, we had just started dating. Now I have 2 daughters, 7 and 4. And we went, and just, hung out all Father's Day and just did cool family stuff together. So it was kind of weird, well, cool. Now this is where we were with the original. We were this young couple that had just started dating. I was in my early 20s.
So
my wife was 20 years old. She's turning 35 in a few days. So just to show you how long it's been. It's been a long time, but it was really cool getting to see it with the entire family. My kids are huge fans of the original. We own it, so of course we've watched it a ton of times, and we watched it a few weeks ago in the build up to the movie. So of course when I told them we were going to go see it, they were losing their minds.
There's a second one.
They were about it. So it was a lot of fun.
Cool.
Definitely.
Good. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about that it was 14 years ago that this one came out, because it's the original was such a good film that it seems like it was just last year or something that it came out. I don't know, it just doesn't seem that long.
It's funny with technology moving as fast as it does. You would think that a computer-animated movie would age horribly.
Yeah.
And I've seen movies that do. There's something about the Pixar movies to me where, it's... Obviously, they do get better as they go along, and, this one looks better than, the original one did. But, upon rewatching the first one, it's I didn't go, oh, man, this just looks so bad now. It's there is something timeless about the Pixar stuff, I think, that you can't necessarily say about a lot of similar films, because I feel like the focus is on the actual story, and they always have a really nice heartfelt message, and so to me that's something that still resonates. And so rewatching the first Incredibles, it's it doesn't feel, that's part of the reason it didn't feel like it had come out that long. It was only in the lead up because they brought it up in the commercials, it's been 14 years, and I had to be wait, has it? Oh yeah, I guess it has. And I will say my favorite thing was right before the movie started, they had the little like almost apology message.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's been 14 years.
So if you didn't know,
we know.
animated movies take a lot of work. You have to come up with a story and then go back to the drawing board and then do that again and again, and it's all on paper, and then you take it to... It's like, okay, we get it.
Yeah, that did crack me up.
That was kind of funny. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember what else was kind of coming out around that time, but I think you're right that there was a couple studios that were trying to kind of make it big. So I think Pixar had just kind of taken over the scene, or at least like solidified that, hey, these are the ones that are on top, because I'm sure like Shrek was coming out around that time for DreamWorks,
yeah,
and stuff like that.
Yeah, DreamWorks was like the big one that I can think of at the time, but I'm sure there was a few.
Small
and of
ones,
course
yeah.
Now I couldn't tell you what those other films were, 14 years later. I just remember at the time there was a ton, but of course The Incredibles, stood the test of time because it's still here and they're making more of them.
Definitely. Well, if you guys are listening to this and you have not seen the film, we will be spoiling it. I'm
Big
sure
time.
we'll be diving into all sorts of different subjects. So if you haven't seen it yet, stop this, go watch the movie, and then come back, and you guys can enjoy the spoiler cast that we are doing here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you mentioned you went to this with your entire family.
Yep.
How packed was the theater when you guys there?
It was pretty busy. I don't know if it was like 100% filled up, but it was pretty busy. We have, I think both the theaters in town now, because there's two across town from each other, and they each have like the luxury loungers, like the reclining chairs and everything, and you have to pick the seats ahead of time. It's in some ways it's really cool, but it's kind of a nightmare because like if you try to pay online, they like charge you like a convenience fee just to like get your seats or whatever. Because back in the day, it's like, oh, you just go into the theater, you buy your tickets and whatever. But now it's like, I don't sound like a grumpy old man, but it's more of a process. But I bought the tickets about a week ahead of time, and the theater was already like at about 80% capacity at that point. And we managed to get decent seats up front, cool. Kind of in the middle. So the theater. It must have been pretty packed, There's definitely a lot of families there. The nightmare on a Father's Day weekend is that there's going to be, like, tons of kids and crying and screaming, and, It was fine. I mean, there was certainly a lot of families in there, but, like, it was cool,
It's kind of one of the movies, though, that I kind of expect that from, and that's kind of also part of the experience. Like, I'm if I go in to, like, see Avengers or something, like, I don't want kids to be, like... talking and screaming and who knows what. But yeah, like, The Incredibles is a family-friendly movie. It's a kid's movie, Like, I kind of expect that, and that kind of made it, at least in this case, made it more enjoyable, because I could hear these kids reacting to what they thought was funny and stuff like that. I was like, oh, this is great. This is good.
Definitely. Movies like this are nice because they do work on several levels where there's like the base story that like the kids are gonna get, and there's sillier jokes that the kids. Yeah, but then there's always like little jokes in there that like they're kind of head scratchers to the kids, but then the adults will be like, okay. And of course, just being a huge comic book fan, there's like more thematic. Things on kind of superhero tropes that you could delve into as well. And I think a good family film like this is kind of multifaceted, and I think that's part of the reason the Pixar ones are so popular. Because I've definitely seen movies like you go see like the Smurfs or something, and it's kind of like there's nothing wrong with it, it's fine, but it's like very clearly what you see is what you get. It is in fact just a kind of cute little movie for kids, and like adults, sometimes if that's what your childhood, what you're into and stuff, you might dig it more. Like I had Nex that was huge on the Smurfs, so she probably really likes that stuff. And like for me, it's like it's all right. My kids like it, so I'll watch it with them. But like something like this, as like a lifelong superhero, fan, I got a lot out of it. And I think it was probably different though than like what my kids got out of it, but they walked away like just as happy. And I don't know, that's cool. That's hard to do. But the Pixar movies, I feel like as a general, all do that.
Yeah, totally. So I had a bit of an interesting experience. This was the first time that I got to use my Movie Pass.
You've been having issues with that, right?
I went on a rant on Twitter because their customer service
I've been following the drama on Twitter. Yes,
was terrible. Long story short, they to use Movie Pass, they mail you like a debit card type of thing, and you can only use it for Movie Pass. It's not an actual debit card, but they mail it to you. It's supposed to take like 7 to 10 business days. Mine never showed up, and so I asked for a replacement. That one never came. So I asked for a second replacement, and they were like, "Oh, we actually never sent you that first one." So I was like, "What the, come on, guys." And eventually asked for a third one. That didn't come. Eventually asked for a fourth, and that one finally came. And
wow.
So it took me almost
took 4 tries.
2 months to get my card. Thankfully, they pushed my start date back, so I didn't miss out on what I was paying for. But then once I got my card, it was because it was not the original card that they sent me, it was not activated to my account. So I had to get it activated. And I went on the app and messaged them. I was like, "Hey, I need to get my card activated." And no one responded for like 12 hours. And by the time they did, it was like 3 in the morning, and I was asleep. And so, of course, I didn't respond. And they were like, "Well, you're not responding, so we're going to close this and consider it done." And so I wake up, and I have to start the whole thing again, It was terrible. So I messaged them once again, and they didn't respond for like 36 hours.
Wow.
And they were like, "We're so sorry. We just released a new plan, and we've had to triple our staff, our support staff." I was like, "This is awful. You guys are terrible."
I remember hearing about the Movie Pass thing when it started and thinking it sounded like it was too good to be true, and apparently it is.
Well, I mean, I've known people who've had this service for a while, and they love it. Like, they're like, "This is the most fantastic thing." They go to movies all the time now. And like I thought, especially since we do all of these podcasts, like, hey, it might be helpful to have like something I can now go to more movies and potentially talk about them and stuff like that. But now that it works, I mean, it should be fine. Who knows if I'm one of the only ones that happened to.
Dang.
Who knows? But I really enjoyed the film. I think, like I thought I guess to me the story was a little bit predictable. I kind of saw it coming, but
the big villain reveal, was not shocking, but how they.
Besides that, I thought it was
how they handled it overall.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's probably my only complaint, because this one basically picks up right like exactly where the first one left off.
Oh yeah, immediately with that fight with the mole guy.
Yeah, with the fake me out mole man dude, and yeah, I mean it just starts off with action from the get go, and I thought it was paced very well. Like if there wasn't action, there was at least comedy, like something to keep you like wanting to know more, to see something else. So I thought it was fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah, the pacing was excellent. It never felt like it dragged. It just kept going at a good clip. Never any points where I was like, never any beats that like felt like they were unnecessary.
Yeah.
So it definitely moved along at a good clip for sure.
It's especially with this being 14 years after the original. It's like, I don't know, are they going to be able to get the writing down again? Are they going to get, the characters right? And I think they nailed it. I think those 14 years definitely paid off.
Definitely.
Because the first one is now basically like the archetype for a superhero movie. Like if you want just a good, fun superhero film, I think the first one that most people will mention is The Incredibles.
Yeah, it's sad in a way that with the Fantastic Four films, they've never been able to capture that family vibe, just like they're supposed to be the heart of the Marvel Universe. But I would say to anyone that wants that, The Incredibles is that,
Exactly,
it's just a different coat of paint. But if you want a superhero family with a heart of gold, just
Goes
trying to do the right thing,
all sorts of adventures,
then that's The Incredibles. And I had that sense as the entire time I was watching it, when there's Invisigirl just driving around on that badass motorcycle and just getting just all the cool action stuff. I was just hyped out of my mind that whole time. I was like, man, this is just, it's not even that I'm just watching this cool family movie and I just love it. It's just as a superhero nerd, I'm like, this is checking that box for me too. It's to me, it's no different than watching Winter Soldier or something, and there's Black Widow in the beginning, flipping through, taking dudes out and all that badass stuff. It's man, it's that same level of awesome action. It's cool superpowers and everything.
Yeah.
So just as a geek, it totally it got me there, as well as the dad that wanted to keep his kids entertained.
Yeah, I think the one scene in this that really stood out to me as this is exactly what the Fantastic Four would do. Was at the end of the film when Violet has the date. They're all like, "Oh, we're all going to the movies and stuff like that," and they get there and they see something and they're like, "Okay, you get out. We're gonna go. We'll be right back." I can totally see Johnny being the one with the date and just being like, "Ah, dang it! Fine,"
Yeah, well, and it's kind of nice just to see the growth in the film too, because earlier in the film, Violet doesn't want anything to do with the family. I mean, she's a teenage kid, and I can totally understand, because the young man that she was going to go on a date with got mind wiped, so he forgot about the date because he forgot about her completely.
Which,
and
side
so
note,
that's
reminded me a lot of Men in Black.
Yeah, oh, very much so.
Yeah.
It's very much but that was really cool, because you got to see, Dad being overprotective dad, trying to do what he thought was the right thing, of course, and protecting her identity. But then he saw that caused, a lot more harm, and that really, in that he didn't have any trust in her. And he came to realize that by the end of the film, of course, and he tried to make it right and somehow made it worse by them going to the restaurant and everything. But I like that by the end, she can see that he's trying, and she forgives him, and he, is able to make it right. And then, so by the time there's the date, she's the one that, gives him the money and drops him off and is like, "Save me seat, I'll be right back." And because at first I was like, "Oh, is she gonna go with him?" And it's like, "No, we have to do this first. It's a responsibility that I have that I can't turn off." And I just thought that was really cool, because I feel like the best hero stories, superhero stories, have that kind of trying to balance, work and family life and whatever, dating, cool Peter Parker stories have him trying to go on a date or whatever, but you do have that responsibility, and I like that at the end. She's the one that made that choice.
Yeah, it was good. So question about Mr. Incredible, because this movie definitely plays off a lot of superhero tropes. And obviously we can kind of point to Mr. Incredible kind of being the Superman character. And I know you're a big Superman fan.
That I am.
So, like, how... If you had to describe why Superman was so great as a character, what, like, did you see any of that in this film? Because I think a lot of people tend to misunderstand Superman. I'm just like, oh, he's this overpowered god, you know, that has no problems.
Yeah, and I love Superman. He's one of my all-time favorite characters, and you know, I'll defend Superman all day. And there's a lot of bad Superman books out there, so that doesn't help matters any. But
there are the ones where he is the overpowered god, you know, that has no problems.
Yeah, when Superman is written correctly, he's supposed to be paradoxically the most human of the Marvel or the DC superheroes, really. Because like I get, you look at his power set and everything, and it's like, well, God, what can hurt this guy? And that's not the point. You know, the point is, he's this orphan. He was raised by this couple. He had essentially what most Americans would consider the ideal American upbringing. You know, being raised on this farm and having a family that loved him, and depending on which version they're going with, either he got to play sports and be a star, or he didn't get to play sports because he was too strong and they were afraid. I mean, they've retconned Superman several times, but either way, he was raised by a family that loved him, you know, in the Midwest, and you know, got to do sock hops and all that stuff. Lana Lang had, so he kind of, despite having that ideal upbringing, part of what makes him great is he still views all that as an outsider, because he knows he's not from there. And so, like, with Batman, like, I love Batman as a character, but Batman is Batman because he doesn't want anyone to have the childhood that he had. You know, he saw his parents gunned down in front of him, so his entire life is motivated by this guilt and by fear. And so, he's a superhero because he doesn't want anyone to go through what he went through. And Superman is the inverse of that, where Superman wants everyone to have what he had. And so that's why he fights. And that's why I love the two, and I'm so not interested in Batman versus Superman stories. I think it's so dumb. So they have the same job, you guys. They may do it differently. But in the more modern Superman stuff, they gave him a son in Jonathan Kent with, like, the current Rebirth stuff.
Yeah.
And I personally have really loved it, not just because I'm a dad myself, but also because, I mean, Superman has been on for 80 years, and they've done kind of what-if stories or things where he had kids before, but this is, like, the first time, you know, in canon that
taking a step forward.
Yeah, it actually feels like growth. It feels like change, and part of the thing that I really like about it is it does show his Superman's vulnerability, because he does make mistakes. He will lash out, you know, just out of fear for his kid, you know, things that he wouldn't have done before. Like, even with Lois, it's like, you know, Lois is tough. She knows what she's doing, and he knows that Lois is smart, and so, you know, he's able to, like, you know, Lois can go to work, do her thing, it's whatever, he's there, you know, if need be, but, like, you know, he doesn't stress about Lois all day because he knows that, you know, she's a badass and she knows what she's doing. But, you know, when you have a child, I mean, I can't remember who said the quote, but it's basically like one of your, you know, internal organs is actually, like, outside of your body. That's what it feels like having a kid. And you know that you love it and you have to, like, protect it, and it's, like, so vulnerable and soft, and you know. So yeah, with Mr. Incredible, I feel like we get a lot of that. You know, in this, we see him make a ton of mistakes. Like, I love, at first, is it Dex? Is that the boy? I'm really bad with names. But his son, he comes home and he can't help him with his math homework at first. Right. He doesn't know how. And at first, he just gets frustrated and just quits.
What do you mean you changed math?
Yeah,
math?
That was... Yeah. I love that. I love that whole scene. But it was great because then you see him in bed, tossing and turning, and he can't sleep. And it's the middle of the night, and he puts on some coffee, and then he teaches himself the new math, and then helps him with his homework and gets him out the door. And so it's like you saw him fail, you saw him stumble, and then he put in the work to do the right thing. And we see it with Violet, and we see it with Jack. You see him stumble and fall many times in this film because he's so used to, pre-dad, he could punch things, he could do whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's that great line about, like, how do you unpunch something from that dude later in the film. But, his whole effort to that point, that was a lot of, how he problem solved, because, it was all superhero, supervillain stuff. And, he was always amazing and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's called Mr. Incredible for a reason. But I like that it showed no matter how strong you are, being a parent isn't any easier for him than it is for any of us. So I feel like a lot of that resonated with me, and a lot of that showed his vulnerability. And it very much, like the current Rebirth Superman stuff feels very similar to this this part of it, with like the father-son relationship,
right.
In particular. No, that was... Sorry, my child is, like, banging on my back right now. What are you doing?
She's having some fun back there.
She is having some fun. Speaking of fatherhood, yeah. No, but I absolutely loved it, and I think he's a fantastic character, and I loved seeing his growth, because, I think in our society, the perception is that moms are just more inherently good at what they do, or at least they get more credit for what they do. And mothers are super valuable. Like my mom was awesome, and my wife is like superhuman sometimes in the stuff that she can do. And I know she makes it look effortless at times. I also know that it is definitely not that. And so we saw in the first film, Invisigirl, in her civilian identities, she made it look a lot easier than he did. And again, the same thing, where it's like it wasn't any easier for her.
Right.
But part of it is, especially being in this movie has like a pseudo 1960s time frame. They never really nailed down a date, but like with all the stuff, it's clearly a more retro past. Like it's all film cameras and like big cars,
right.
And like there's some cool tech that they wouldn't have back then. But whatever, it's
it's like the
fiction.
Batman animated series, where it's like you can
very
tell
much,
it's older, but they don't say exactly, but it has new technology at the same time. So
I kind of love that too, that kind of retro noir kind of, like there can kind of be laser guns and whatever, but then there's also like still like magnetic tape and that kind of things. It's fun. But gender roles at the time especially would have dictated that. And we see that in this film, where she did the Susie Homemaker thing on top of doing the superhero thing, and then when she was thrust into the limelight as like the kind of their solo star, then he had to take over a lot of the duties, and that was a big struggle for him. And I enjoyed that kind of role reversal.
Yeah, it's cool. I think for me, they really nailed Mr. Incredible when he's in that moment of just like, I have no idea what to do. Like I'm the one who's supposed to know what is right all the time, and that's kind of why I was asking about Superman, because that's kind of the trope that he is. Like he's the one that a lot of people look to, like, okay, what is the right thing to do? And to me, some of the best stories of him is when he actually doesn't know, and he like even if he's trying to do the right thing, it might not be the right thing. And so to kind of see him in that position. Oops, my mic just spiked. Hold on. Yeah, so to kind of see him in that position where he doesn't really know what to do, and he's struggling with that choice, that to me is like, that's what people should know about Superman and stuff. And so when they had that, I was like, yes, good, perfect. They nailed that there.
Yeah, when you have the righteous heroes like, you know, Captain America and Superman. And I never understood why Captain America didn't get the same hate. Not that I want him to, but like Captain America's overall a pretty goody character too. But people seem more forgiving. Maybe it's just because he's not nearly as powerful as Superman.
Sure.
But you know, cut from the same cloth as far as like, you know, motivations and mindset. But yeah, sorry, I had to point. My kid is banging on things and totally distracted me from what that point was.
That is A-okay.
Woo! It's really hot here, and we've been stuck inside all day, and I don't think we know how to deal with it anymore. It's like 90 degrees.
Oh, man.
But like in Washington, when it gets like 90 degrees, it's always like super humid, and it just feels like a swamp ass. It's just not. It's not good.
Fun at all.
It's just not good. So I think my brain is melting a little bit.
I know that feeling. Yeah, so you also kind of touched on the like gender role reversal of like, hey, this movie is gonna put in not Invisigirl, Elastigirl.
See, I can't even. Yeah, I'm gonna get the names right today.
We're gonna put her more in the spotlight, which at first my mind was like, huh, that's strange that they would do that on a movie that's coming out like Father's Day weekend. Like I'm all for it in the film. That's totally cool with me. But I think it was neat because neither one of their narratives really took control, if that makes sense. Like one wasn't more dominant than the other, and they both had their own strong. Like, hey, here's Mr. Incredible, and he's having this kind of crisis of knowing what to do and, you know, not making the right choices, even though if they are the, you know, for the right reasons. And then here's Elastigirl, who's trying to kind of do her own thing and step out of the shadow of the men, and at the same time, like, still be with her family and still be in that maternal role, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I like that you get to see when the choice is made that it's going to be her.
Yeah.
He obviously struggles with it, you know, and he just assumed it was going to be him. You know, and to him it was like super obvious because, you know, gender roles being what they are, and that's just still our default, you know,
Sure.
in society, and it certainly would have been in that kind of nebulous, you know, time period. And I like that at first, you know, he feels like he's kind of just put on the back burner, and, you know, she's the one getting all of the, you know, the attention, all the limelight, but the film spends equal time splitting between the two, so it's not like the camera pans on her and it's like he's the side story. It's like him and the kids are every bit as much of the focus, and it just alternates between the two until they all sync up again as a family at the end, just like they were at the beginning. And I really enjoyed that, and I liked that, you know, at first he was upset about it and almost felt like he was being punished, you know, just because that goes to show, you know, again, like the mindset that, you know, people have sometimes. It's like, well, these are your kids, and don't you want to be with them? And of course he came to relish, I think, the role by the end, and really grew into it, but he had to stumble and fall a bunch of times and then really change his mindset and realize that ultimately he in fact was, you know, his biggest obstacle.
Yeah.
And then getting some sleep also helped him out a little bit. That 17-hour nap he had. But I like that. Yeah, the film, you know, always treated them as equals. You know, and it was him that had to realize that they were still that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, because it has him end up being in a more traditionally maternal role, and like him kind of finding his own strength in that, and then Elastigirl is put out front and center, you know, in that traditionally more masculine role, and she's finding her strength in that. But at the same time, it isn't like, oh well, I don't want to be the mother, like she still had that, and that never detracted from like her finding strength and being the one that like, hey, I can actually like go out and save the day and act, like be strong and stuff like that. So I thought that was really neat.
Absolutely, and I think like just in the way that he was threatened at first by her being the one to go out solo, I think we did see a little bit of her being a little threatened by him being kind of the main parent for a bit too, because that was kind of the role that she had been in, and so I like that there was a push and pull dynamic there, and I feel like with any good family story, you need to kind of see that, and that ultimately they each kind of respect the other one a little more from having to walk, in the shoes of the other person.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. What else about the film stood out to you? There was a lot of fantastic, funny moments. There were a few other kind of superhero tropes and stuff like that they touched on, even getting down to like police brutality and just like how like, hey, it can kind of be helpful if you record this stuff, and it's all about perception.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I really liked. It's like the first one came out 14 years ago, and the political climate was quite a bit different, back then than it is now. So even though the movie picks up immediately after the other one did, one of the things I like within superhero films, there's a lot of emphasis on collateral damage now. You see, especially like in the DC films, that's like been a huge part of the narrative is, Kryptonians came and destroyed this city, and like thousands of people died, and there's huge fallout because of it, and there's heroes and villains being motivated by this in various ways. And so in The Incredibles, it was cool to see that kind of motivation as well, where it was the government and the people in the city, like, look at all the damage you caused, you should have gotten out of the way, and it fit in perfectly with like. It had already been established in the other films that, superheroes used to be a thing, and they had kind of gone underground. Right. And back then it was more because like that one guy had like a lawsuit or whatever it was, and it was more of a joke. But in this, even though it was a more lighthearted film, I like that they were able to take some of the context from today's superhero films and work that in, and so it's still making this movie feel very, very relevant to any other superhero film that's out right now.
Yeah, I think it did a fantastic job of that. What'd you think of the villain? We mentioned that the reveal was kind of predictable.
Yeah, to me that was the most lackluster part. I figured it out pretty early on that it was, one of the two siblings, and then I was like, well, it must be the girl. It has to be the girl.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly. But I'm usually not a big fan of like heroes versus heroes, with the exception being if there's like, mind control or something involved, because then it's like it's a lot scarier. Like there's the scene where all the people come, and Frozone's doing a really good job of protecting the kids because he's so powerful. He's just being a badass, and I remember just thinking like, oh, it's so cool, man! Like he's so awesome, and I was also really glad that he got a lot more screen time in this one too.
Definitely.
And that was another thing that I was very happy about. Because that's another thing I feel like we're talking more minority representation, and he kind of had a bit part in the last one, and it was amazing. Everyone remembers him from the first one as a beloved character, but I liked it that again they are actually paying attention to what's going on right now, and he was a much bigger part in this film. In fact, if you take him out of this film, the film can't happen, which is, just shows you how important any character is, can they be removed without fucking things up? And so when they're being attacked, and he's protecting them and just being a super badass, I remember I had that thought, like, God, he's so powerful, it's so cool, it's awesome. And then, of course, when he gets the goggles slapped down, I was like, uh-oh.
It's like, oh, no. Like,
now it's scary, because it's scary all of a sudden, because you know how powerful they are. And the thing with, like, character like a Mr. Incredible or Superman or whoever is, like, I'm never into could Superman fight the Hulk or whatever, because it's like, people often forget to bring...
you mentioned the Batman versus Superman or Captain America versus Iron Man.
But people always talk about, like, the power set, right? And it's like, okay, that's kind of interesting, I guess, but they often want to leave out the morals of it.
Or
and so that's
ideology behind.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like Superman theoretically could fight or kill almost anyone if he wanted, right? Because he's Superman, but Superman's not a killer, so he doesn't. Like, the Hulk, gets like the strong. Yeah, it's like he gets stronger and stronger the more angry he gets. But it's like theoretically, Superman could like throw the Hulk into the sun, but he wouldn't do that because he's not a horrible person.
Yeah.
But a mind controlled Superman, that's scary. You know what I mean? And so like when suddenly you have the heroes mind controlled, that was freaky, and that was really cool.
Yeah,
and that was the best part. Yeah, because the actual the character herself, she wasn't like terribly interesting to me. I liked the whole like social media idea, and again, it felt very relevant and very now with trying to alter people's perceptions. Like that part was cool. That part I enjoyed. But like her as the villain, it was like, it was, I could take it or leave it. I didn't like dislike it or anything, but it was like one of the weaker story elements.
Yeah, I think I liked the villain persona, but then figuring out kind of who it was, like we said, is the lackluster thing. It kind of reminded me on a twist on Batman, though, because here's a character whose parents get shot and murdered, and then in this case it's her and her brother, and she does have her villain monologue, and she does kind of have an interesting few lines where she's like, look, my brother, what did she say? She said he's wanting to change the law or something, or he thinks all of this happened like because superheroes like were illegal at the time, where I think she was more like, I think this is happening because superheroes like existed, like if that wasn't the case, or I don't remember exactly what she says.
She's definitely a fan of self-advocacy, which I do like that. I do think a good villain, you need to understand where they're coming from. You don't have to agree with it. In fact, you probably shouldn't agree with it. Sure. But like, and so I did like that I can totally empathize and understand her motivations. I also liked that, her and her brother have the same origin story as far as the death of their parents.
Different ways.
And exactly. And I love that, because like Batman's awesome. Batman has like a supervillain's origin, but he turned into a hero anyway. And that's why like Batman's awesome, right?
Yeah.
Because so many people in similar situations, became criminals in like the Gotham universe. I also love that Batman like caused so many of his villains. That's like fascinating to me. It's like he's directly the cause of so many of them being villains. I love that. It's like, I talk about guilt,
Batman,
man.
you are failing at your mission completely.
Yeah, like you're real good at creating. Yeah, real good at that. But I like that. Yeah. So her brother, idolizes superheroes, and in his mind, I like that technically neither of them is wrong, really, because it's like, all right, if the villains hadn't been outlawed, they would have answered the phone and they would have been saved. At the same time, the dad apparently they had a safe room. He could have like just got him there. I mean, theoretically, we don't know how much time there was for him to get there, but they probably could have done that too. So I like that, like,
Yeah,
they're both right, and they both take it in two completely different directions.
Oddly enough, like if you look at her perspective from this sense of like, hey, you can't rely on these superheroes to do what you need. Like your everyday life, there will be things that you can do to protect yourself or look after yourself, and you can't always rely on someone in a position of power to make that happen. Like it's a good message behind it of like, hey, there will be times when you kind of need to do things for yourself.
Oh yeah, I feel like I've read cool Superman stories too, where like people basically just weren't careful enough or didn't put themselves in dangerous situations just because they knew that Superman would save them. Yeah. And Superman would even have to be like, hey, yeah, like I'm here now, but
what happens
maybe,
next week when I'm out in space,
Exactly. Like, and I think that's the thing that, when a lot of these comic books, a lot of these superheroes were coming out back in the day, they were written for kids, and so there wasn't a lot of thought put into it, and as these stories have progressed and the audience has grown up, even a movie like this does have to explore what would a world full of superheroes do to the general populace, because there would be people that would come to rely on it for sure. At the same time, if there's threats like in the beginning with like the mole guy, it's like he could have robbed the bank and theoretically, according to like the government people, like whatever, he could have just gotten away and they got insurance, they would have been fine. But there were situations in those films and in other comics and things that we've seen where it's like it is some giant robot from outer space that's gonna like kill a bunch of people or something that the average person can't deal with, and that's what the balance has to be. Is like, well, if there is a world full of superheroes, then there has to be supervillains, because that's it's fun to see every once in a while. Like, I like when Batman fights gangsters and stuff. I enjoy that. Like, whatever, Batman's just a human guy supposedly, even though he like apparently never loses fights. But at the same time, if there's no like Joker or whatever, Batman kind of seems like a dick. But if again, there's
Mr.
Like
Freeze, a dick whether or not Joker.
Batman is kind of a dick either way. But yeah. But if there's Mr. Freeze going around, turn people into popsicles, and obviously the cops can only do so much, so you've got to have like a threat that can match that. And this film did that well. It was a threat they created themselves, but
sure.
I did like that they did explore that, and like because what in her mind, absolutely, like my parents could have done it for themselves and they would have been fine.
Yeah, exactly. What was your favorite part? Did you have a favorite moment?
Oh, that's hard.
I'll
be honest, there wasn't really like any one particular thing. The designer, I always forget her name.
Edna, I believe.
Edna's great.
It's E something. It's like Edna or Eliza.
I think it is Edna.
Something.
I'm pretty sure it's Edna. Well, so I guess probably like the whole part with Edna becoming like Auntie Edna, because she's hilarious. She's great. She stole the cereal in the last one, like that brief little moment she was in. So so probably So I guess so the Edna scene, I guess, just because it's Edna and she's great. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first one that came to mind for me too, because when she like doesn't understand it and it's just like, you're asking me to babysit, like that's it, like come on, like I am an artist, like I do not have time for this, and then she starts seeing all of Jack's powers kind of manifest, and then he starts mimicking her, which is like a new one in that scene where he starts to like shapeshift into her, and she just like, oh, I get it now. Like, this guy can do almost anything. We don't know the limit of his powers yet. And she's just, she has that like light bulb moment and then afterwards we see her like change of heart, and it's just this is very unexpected and very funny.
Yeah, that whole thing was gold. I love it because the whole thing starts with Elastigirl's new outfit is designed by someone else, and it's more of a grim, dark, whatever. It's a way different look than the other outfit. Yeah, and so I love it. Like, that's how it starts. It's just like, boy, I don't know if I want to talk to you.
Like, she doesn't even say hi. She goes, "You hired her."
Yeah, I love that. That was perfect. Because of course she'd be heated. Because she's like never gonna forgive that. I love it.
She's a snob. It's fantastic.
It was beautiful.
And then afterwards, when Mr. Fantastic gets back home, and the daughter, why am I blanking on her name
Violet?
right now? Yeah, Violet is like, so she's babysitting Jack. Are you are you okay with this? And he's like, no, but I'm doing it anyways.
Yeah.
He's so miserable in that moment. He's just like, I don't know what to do.
Dude, sleep deprivation is a thing, man.
It really is.
Yeah. I can tell you from firsthand experience, when you start out and you have your first kid, you are just convinced that you are going to do everything as perfectly as you can. I mean, you go in knowing that you're going to make mistakes, but like you buy the most expensive diapers and whatever, right? And like by the time that second kid comes around, you're like, oh,
get the cheap ones.
Whatever. They're fine. Yeah, exactly. Like you'll hit a certain point where you're like, my kids will be banging on each other, and like I'm just like, they're fine. They'll like they know how to defend themselves. Like they'll like, what? Bite her back. I don't know. What am I really? I mean, come on.
They'll learn.
Come on.
They'll have to learn
like,
somehow.
What's up? Yeah, that feel good, did it? That's right. Get to the point where you're just like, well, it's not like you don't care. You're just at a certain point, it's like, how many times today have we had this exact same talk? How many times? I don't even know anymore.
Yeah.
So I understand those exasperated, like, no, I don't think it's a good idea, but you know what? Whatever. At this point, it's fine. I'm fine with it. It's fine. Everything's fine. You just gotta throw your hands up sometimes. They're not actually gonna get hurt, so you're like, it's whatever, man. It's cool.
Kids are tough.
Yeah.
Which I think this is kind of another thing that the movie did well too, because the kids had their own arc, right? Because the first one, they weren't featured as prominently. Like they came in at the end of it to be like, oh yeah, they have powers too, and they can help.
Yeah, way more of a family vibe this time.
Yeah, but
absolutely.
This one, it like they actually took that as their arc. Like, hey, we actually do have powers. We can help. Which happens a lot on superhero teams when they have the new kid, or it's like you're like, hey, Miles Morales, you're like 13. Like you need to calm down. You're not even in high school yet.
Yeah, it's a really good exploration of just people, even parents, talk down to kids and just really there's a perception that just, and whether it's because you're trying to protect them or whatever it is, just not have enough faith in them, and I get it. It's like, I've got two daughters and they're little girls now. They're 4 and 7 years old, and I remember them being little infants where they couldn't do anything, and now my oldest, she's actually advanced now in reading. She's at a 3rd grade reading level now.
There you go.
And just growing and growing every day. And so she can just sit down and read books to me all day now. It trips me out, and it's like, I know they're smart kids, but part of me is still like, but you're a baby though, so I get, it's not like, it's not this intentional.
Ago, you couldn't comprehend this.
Yeah. And so like, I don't think it's a malicious thing a lot of times. I don't think it's a like, oh, I really don't think you can do it and I don't trust you. It's more that like, I'm still processing that you're this little growing, changing, human being, Sorry, Emma's, are you cuddling with me again? Yeah. But I love that in this, we get to see, we absolutely get to see their arc. We get to see them grow within this story. And they're never vilified within this story. They're certainly antagonists a lot of the time, but that's the nature of, children. But they are a huge part of the story. In fact, at the end, they are the heroes and they have to save the day. And if it wasn't for them, the city would have been super messed up by the boat. They had to be the ones to save their parents, and that was super beautiful. And I love those kind of empowering stories like that. Because I don't know, man. It's one of the things I see all the time with just people in general, like just talking down to kids and just not giving them enough credit. Like, kids are smart.
Yeah.
They are. And so even again, stripping out the powers thing, it's a good kind of commentary. That's a lot of this. It's it's awesome superhero stuff. And that's where the surface level is a cool superhero story. If you strip out anything super powered and it's just the kids just having to save their family from whatever the crisis is, it just shows you how powerful that they can be.
Yeah.
Okay.
She is doing handstands back there.
She is doing handstands and poking her belly button. Yeah. Find your belly button. Yeah. Weirdo.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun. I thought Jack was hilarious.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
Just because he's such a wild card, especially manifesting God knows how many powers.
Yeah, how you gonna fight a raccoon, son? Come on, that was hilarious.
Actually, that was also a fantastic scene.
That was a highlight too. Was the raccoon fight? That was beautiful.
Amazing.
That was so beautiful.
Because
also, oh my God, we didn't even talk about it though. The short in the beginning was the sad dumpling.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
That was the most depressing shit ever. Oh my God.
It was good. It almost made me tear up. It was one of those things. I'm like, oh, this is so good. I love it. It's so cute. But yeah, I think a lot of people didn't even know, because again, it was a lot of younger kids, so I could tell a lot of them didn't understand what was happening. Is this the movie?
Yeah.
But
all
of the adults were like, yes, the shorts. We love the the Pixar shorts.
Oh yeah, it's one of the best parts too. Definitely.
The dumpling getting hit in the head with the soccer ball and it going flat. It's just oh no. And then she eats it.
Yeah, that was the part that messed me up. Yeah. You're oh, is it? Okay. It's a metaphor, y'all. It's a metaphor. She did not, in fact, actually eat her son. But yeah. But always with Pixar, I think you go either way, So I was well, maybe she did, in fact, have a dumpling child. I don't know. They've done some weird stuff. But, no, it was good. It was really great. It was, that one ended up having a really really good message as well. And your kids are gonna grow, and you've got to let go at a certain point. And if you squeeze too tight, they might not come back. So you gotta let them stumble and fall and do their own thing at a certain point, especially when they become young adults. As hard as that is, and it's one of those, my kids are little right now, but I know someday they're gonna do that, and I will have trouble with it. But you gotta let them.
Yep. You live and learn.
So good. Mm-hmm.
That is for sure.
Pixar, man, doing it. They're doing it.
Any last words or thoughts? Final thoughts, recommendations, whatever you want to say.
Man. Gosh, let's see. It's definitely dope. It's definitely worth seeing. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, as far as things that are like this,
have you read any good Fantastic Four stories that might be something along the lines of this?
I'll be honest. I've been reading comics for 33 years, and I've read a lot of Marvel, and I haven't read that much Fantastic Four. I need to. I know I need to.
I haven't
so
either,
many, so many of their.
Loss.
Well, first Silver Surfer, first Galactus, first Inhumans, first Black Panther, first Eternals. There's so many things that happened in the Fantastic Four. If there's one most important book in their entire history, it's the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
That was their first superhero book, 1962. That really started like the modern era of superheroes without a doubt. And I've barely read any of them.
Yeah.
I was just always more of an X-Men kid, but I am interested in reading some of their stuff now. They're about to start a new story because the Fantastic Four didn't have a series for about 3 years, thanks to fucking Marvel and stupid
movie
not having the movie rights and not wanting to like give them money or whatever. I don't know. It's a whole thing. People get mad at me for getting salty about corporate comics, but well, this is the kind of stuff that happens with corporate comics. They decide they're just not going to make a book for a while just to like hurt someone else's movie deal. Like, well, that's silly. But Dan Slott, who is a fantastic writer, and he's just now leaving Amazing Spider-Man. He wrote Spider-Man for about 10 years.
I've read most of it.
Most of it's
Spider-Man,
good.
Yeah.
Some of it's not so great. Like Spider Island was kind of bullshit, but a lot of it's pretty good. Really good writer overall. Did a really good Silver Surfer run as well in the last few years. So yeah, solid writer. He's going to be doing FF. Sarah Pichelli, who is the co-creator of Miles Morales and did a lot of the Miles Spider-Man pencils, which are absolutely fantastic, gorgeous art. We'll be doing the art on that, and then Asad Ribic will be doing these gorgeous digitally painted covers for FF. So there is a new Fantastic Four book coming. I am hyped for it. It does look really good. I'm definitely going to check it out. Marvel in their infinite wisdom is charging $5.99 for the issue 1, and so I will not be buying it at the full price. When they have it on Comixology for like $1, or when the reasonably priced collection comes out down the road, I will pick that up instead.
Or if you want to wait 6 months, it'll be on Marvel Unlimited.
That's what's up. Yeah. Marvel Unlimited as well, for sure. Comixology Unlimited. It'll inevitably I'll be able to read it at a more reasonable price.
Yeah.
But I am hyped for it. It looks really good. It's a really good creative team. I already mentioned the Rebirth era Superman is really, really solid. They did a miniseries called Superman and Lois. That's the one that you would want to read first. It's kind of like the 0 volume.
Okay.
They did an amazingly horrible and convoluted story called Convergence that you do not have to read. In fact, I do not recommend you read. But out of Convergence came the post-crisis Superman that was basically the Superman from the late 80s all the way until Rebirth. Or New 52, sorry. That version of Superman, they brought him back, essentially, in this Convergence story. And so, yeah, it was cool, because, yeah, him and Lois in that had been married since, like the 90s or whatever in real time. And they had a kid, and their kid is Jonathan Kent, and so he's half... And that's really cool, because that's one of those things they kind of, like, always flip-flop back and forth, and, like, can he have a kid, can they not have a kid? They spent a year... Yeah. Well, the whole Convergence thing was, like, everyone had to, like, live for a year in, like, a domed city. And so, like, in the Superman one, he was powerless for a year, so I'm guessing that's how they got away with the whole, like, whatever, you're able to have a kid because he was powerless for that year. Not that it should matter either way, I guess, but for the continuity nerds out there. Yeah, so that's really cool. The writer Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason, they're really great. They've been working on the book. They're just about to leave because Bendis is taking over Superman in Action Comics. But the Superman book, the main book, was the book that they took over after that Lois and Clark miniseries. And yeah, they did like 45, 50 issues of this series, and a big chunk of it is the super strong family vibe, with Lois being a major part of the book, and with Jonathan, who is the new Superboy. And so he's half human, half Kryptonian. He's got some powers they're kind of still developing, and at this point they kind of like will cut off and randomly like he'll get injured and things like that, and doesn't really know how to use them. May not be as strong as his dad. Might end up being even stronger. It's kind of like he's such a young kid that
we don't know yet.
It's not really known at this point. But that book, a big chunk of it is Superman just being a dad and Lois being a mom, and the family vibe. And so if you liked that from Incredibles, the Rebirth era Superman stuff, has enough of that that I think you would dig it as well, for sure. Especially like the more like, single dad trying to do the new math kind of stuff. Yeah,
Cool.
Definitely. And I don't know. Yeah, I think that's all I had to say. I loved it. I'll probably think of stuff later when we're not recording that I should have said to make myself sound smarter. But no, I loved it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Worth the wait.
Yeah.
I hope the sequel doesn't take another 14 years. I will say that.
Yes. Yeah.
Because,
hopefully,
geez, my kids will be young adults at that point.
hopefully, if and when they make Incredibles 3, that won't be 14 years down the road from now.
Yes, straight up, man.
Yeah, I thought it was a fantastic movie. I loved it. It was hilarious. There's a lot of great action, a lot of fantastic superhero stuff, great family movie. I would recommend, if your kids wanted to get into some comics, and I think a great one to start them out would be The Runaways.
Runaways is great. Yeah.
That's a more kid-centric focused book, and basic premise is these kids all find out that their parents are super villains, so they run away and decide to fight back. So it takes place in the Marvel universe. So they'll run into Spider-Man and Wolverine and stuff like that. So it's a good introduction, but you don't need to know continuity or this or that. You can just start with that, and they have a new title of that is going on right now, which is also fantastic as well.
I need to read the new one, the Rainbow Rowell series.
But yeah, it was good. It was good. I enjoyed this movie a lot.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Well, let's see, social media thingamabobs. If you guys liked this episode and you want to support what we do, patreon.com/the Whatnauts is where you can go, and you can sign up for as little as $1 a month. You can get all of our episodes early, with the exception right now of this show, the Reactor Corps, because we record these and put them out ASAP for you guys. But as we publish episodes and record them, you guys can get them all early on Patreon, and I'm sure down the road we will have a little bit more rewards and stuff like that, fun stuff you guys can get. Follow us on Twitter at the Whatnauts. That will be kind of the one-stop shop for all of our stuff, but I know a few of our shows also have their own personal Twitter pages. You run those ones, Eric, so where can they find some of our other shows?
So, the longer running of my two shows, although neither have released yet, is Questionable Commentary with Mannix and unpaid intern Jess Beaver.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so those are going to start releasing on the Whatnauts. Hi, Emma. Wasn't getting enough attention. So we're on Twitter now. It's Questionable Co5. That's Questionable CO5. Yeah, they didn't really let me choose the how the handle turned out there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone with that. It's not the easiest to remember. If you search for Questionable Commentary on, Kyle made us an awesome Top Gun-esque logo. So if you see the Questionable Commentary with the dope Top Gun style logo, that is us. Feel free to follow us. That show, we do movie commentaries and TV show commentaries. We've currently been alternating between films and doing the U.S. edition of The Office.
That's going to be releasing when?
A ton of stuff. That's pretty quick here. I kept telling people fall just to lower their expectations, but realistically, we've got a lot of stuff ready to go. I'm just waiting on some final touches, so I don't have a hard date, but very soon.
Very soon.
Very soon.
Sounds good.
We were actually supposed to record today, but that didn't happen. So. Shenanigans. But we've already recorded 30 or 40 episodes. We've got a ton of episodes already. Really, it's just finishing touches at this point. And then my other show is Independent Focus, and that is a comic book show that is all indie comics and creator-owned comic books, and that's at Indie Focus Pod. Both shows you can find on Facebook. On Questionable Commentary on Facebook, we do tend to live stream when we record, and so like we've been doing The Office lately, and we'll do a live video. So even though we haven't released any podcast yet, we have been recording them, and if you want to play along at home, you can watch us on Facebook for now, just to prove that we are in fact working on it and it is a thing, and you can watch episodes with us now if you want to. We tend to record Monday mornings, but yeah, Pacific time, and guess I think that's it. Yeah, as far as like, yeah,
Cool.
the 2 shows, and then just I'm working on the Whatnauts. We're gonna do some more stuff together, and like the Captain's Log, we're trying to get going. And yeah, my personal stuff, I'm at the Bobby Krogan on everything, and Eric Mannix Photography on Facebook and on Instagram if you want to see my cosplay and fashion shoot stuff, which I hope you do.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's everything.
Sounds good. Yeah, you mentioned the Captain's Log, which you and I are going to be recording this coming Friday. So if you guys are listening to this, it'll be out. We'll at least be recording it later this week. We will be live streaming that on twitch.tv/the Whatnauts, and then it will be out as a podcast the following week. But yeah, that's all of that stuff is a lot to remember, so you guys can go to thewhatnauts.com for more information on that. And yeah, I believe that's it. If you guys want to yell at me for something I said on the internet, you can find me at Hush315 on Twitter, and I believe that is it. Thank you guys for checking this out and listening in. Let us know what you guys thought, or if you guys want to tweet at us and be like, hey, you guys had a good point, or you guys missed this, or something. Let us know. But yeah,
Definitely.
my name has been Kyle Springer.
And I'm still Eric.
There you go. And
I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna change it halfway through the next one. Though I started the episode as Eric Mannix.
but haha, I fooled
Now
you
I'm
now.
like, I'm Hector Sanchez now. I got it notarized and everything. Ha! What you got? Just to keep you on your toes. Watch out for that.
And this
Eric Mannix for now, though.
this has been the Reactor Corps. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you guys next time.